Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone else out there, it is time for another episode of the talk show, aka this VGC podcast experiment that I am doing, known as the Baekfast Club, where we're going to be analyzing the past couple of tournaments that have been going on for Regulation I, and then leading up towards the big tournaments coming up in literally starting in a couple days after this release. It's late this weekend as I posted the North American International Championship. Then we had the Japan Championship Series, their nationals. So we have some pretty big action-packed events coming up soon. So might as well just take a step back, look at the past couple events that have happened, the final regionals and special events of the 2025 season. And we're going to be breaking them down, going over some predictions for what I will be giving my opinions and thoughts about the upcoming events, the Japan Nationals, as well as the North American International Championship. And then a bonus story of the horror story that I had for Switch 2, which if you have popped up into my Twitch streams, twitch.tv/JamesWBeck, you might know this story already. But let me just say, my Switch 2 story might have been a groundbreaking one, apparently, because it made the news several times, apparently. And yes, so we're going to be going over all of those. But of course, before we get started, if you do enjoy this podcast talk show series, I would really appreciate if you do leave a like down below and leave a comment, any feedback down below in the comment section, because it really does help the series. Because currently this is an experiment going on for the season, so Post Worlds will probably be the final episode of the experiment, and then I'll analyze the series, and depending on the feedback, the reaction, just how well the series is done in general, do I want to continue it? I'll analyze it from there. So if you do want to see more of this, please, it does help out to leave a comment, share it around, and of course leave your feedback as well, because first episode did amazing. Second episode might be my fault, maybe it wasn't the best address episode, so it didn't exactly perform that great. So who knows? Right now it's on the cusp, and it is in your hands to decide whether the series will continue. But let's get started. We have the final weekend of May, where we had 3 events that happened, 2 of them official, 1 of them a big online tournament. Let us start off with the Durban Special Championship. So if you don't know, we had this last weekend in May where we had 3 events, which was the Durban Special events, the VR May Challenge Series, and then the Portland Regional Championship in North America. So let's go over the Durban Special Championship, because it is kind of brief. Because if you don't know, Durban is in South Africa, and they don't really have a large player base. So this is only 13 players in the Master Division. So I don't think it really needs to be explained too much. So we'll just look over the teams real quick. In general, there really is not too much here information wise, but yes. And in fact, some of the players aren't even from South Africa. And this has been kind of a thing in VGC, where you go to a region that probably has less players, a little bit easier to maybe get wins if you're a more experienced player, because they don't get to play as much of the game in South Africa, for instance, here, and a lot less Swiss rounds, because 13 rounds is 4 Swiss rounds compared to a average VGC tournament that usually has like 10 or 11 rounds. Especially, it is quite a big difference here. So of course, it's actually funny, because of the top 4, only 2 of them are from South Africa, but they were able to defend their home turf, which was the winning team featuring Calyx Shadowrider and Terapagos. It actually, if we do break it down, it was a Fake Tears Booster Energy Flutter main with the Pollen Puff Encore Calyx Shadowrider. We're both Terra Normal, I guess, for just really making sure that Shadowrider Calyx, you are not losing to the mirror. And then this Covert Cloak Terapagos with Calm Mind, some support with the Rocky Helmet of Moongus, a Solvest Raging Bolt, that's pretty classic, and then Life or Pelipper. Like, Calyx Shadowrider Terapagos, Amoonguss, Raging Bolt, pretty standard. Pelipper is an interesting one, but it does make sense being able to shut down Koraidon, which is one of the biggest threats to Terapagos. So being able to shut down the Weather, have that wide guard support as well for the team. And then having double ghosts with the Fluttermane and the Calyx Shadow Rider, which we have seen on Tarapago's teams, because having that extra form of speed control, especially this one running Thunder Wave, the fake tears can be a cool combination with either Terra Starstorm or Astro Barrage on this team, which is pretty neat. But otherwise, definitely a more unique take things on the Calyx Shadow Rider and the Tarapago stuff. And then second place was a player from Italy, I believe. Yep, that's Italy. And they were just running a standard Lunala Koraidon. This is basically like a common Sun team that was pretty dominant, especially at the start of Regulation I. Nothing too much to note. We had Chongjun, who's a player from China, actually coming to this event and playing with the team that Michael Kelsch did use to win the, was it Utrecht Special event? Yeah, I believe it was Utrecht Special event. That was the team he ended up piloting in order to get third place. And then fourth place, also running the team, I believe, that Andrew Ding used to win the first regional championship of Regulation I. I think it was the same. Yeah, it was a Solvest Maridon. Pretty much everything, just to note, was pretty much the same there. So not too much to say. Otherwise, Art Trickerman fifth, and sixth place was standard Calyx Shadow Rider Zamazenta stuff. So not really too much to note about this tournament. Again, there really isn't too much to say because South Africa doesn't really have much of a VGC scene. So yeah, they don't really play too much. So not really that many notes that I really have to talk about. So let's move over to the next couple of events. The VR May Challenge, which was the Victory Road online event during the same weekend. There were 204 players and about 9 rounds of Swiss with asymmetrical top cut. And an interesting note was the winning composition is a composition we actually haven't seen too much yet, which is the Calyx Shadow Rider plus Maridon, which are both some of the most dominant restricted in the special attacking scene for pretty much. However, you don't really see them commonly paired because usually Calyx Shadow Rider, Maridon, they don't really complement each other's weaknesses. They're just really strong special attacker on top of another really strong special attacker, both really fast restricted. They're some of the fastest in the game. So other than that, not really too much synergy, but there was a team report on this team. I'll link it down below in the description if anyone wants to see. But Jono TV did win with this combination of Calyx Shadow Rider plus Maridon. Ended up really cool synergy. Although type coverage, you might be wondering, oh, this type synergy, it has 4 ground weeks. It does have 4 ground weeks. If this team saw a Groudon or a Landers, you have to get every turn right, and you gotta just make you gotta pray for misses, because this team does not have the best defensive synergy, but it does have some pretty good offensive synergy, right? Because you have ways to just get KO. Specs Maridon, really powerful. Fake Tears Whimsicott on top of a Astro Barrage Shadow Rider. And if you're like a choice set, then you get disabled from the Shadow Rider. You basically lose momentum because you're forced to stay in and struggle or switch out, which gives more powerful or more moves that the powerful ally can just use, like the Maridon or the Chiyu here. And then even then you have disruptors like Double Fake Out, for instance, Intimidate support that just pairs well with Maridon and Calyx Shadow Rider, the Iron Hands with the Hadron Engine just being able to give it the attack boost, while just a great Fake Out support for Shadow Rider and Maridon, and the Chiyu running Ruination, which is able to just break through, like, hey, if you're setting up a light screen, I'm still doing at least 50%, and even with a light screen up, I'm still probably going to KO you with Maridon or two-shot you with a Calyx Shadow Rider. So there's a lot of ways that you could just break through offensive teams because of the combination of Fake Tears, the Ruination Chiyu, the Double Fake Out. So it's a really interesting take on a more offensive team there. And then pretty much the rest, I mean, there really isn't too much to say. I think we've kind of gone to this more developed stage. It's already been past the first 3 weeks, and we've gone through like how the meta is developed, and pretty much these cores have just been fine-tuned a bit more from like the first couple of weeks. Players have experimented a bit, have actually competed in these tournaments, and we've just been noticing more of the similar trends. We've seen like the Calyx Ice Rider Maridon stuff be able to do well. Again, this is a team that Michael Kelsch used to win the Utrecht Special event, popping up, getting second place here. Hard Tricker, which is interesting, which was able to get third place, and stuff like Zamazenta plus Maridon able to do well and achieve the fourth place. Lunala plus Maridon in fifth. I mean, a lot of these is just like combos that we've already have seen pretty much for the most part. Maybe there's like few tweaks here and there, but pretty much the compositions are the same, right? A bunch of Calyx Shadow Riders are popping up, and we're kind of leaning towards like, okay, you're seeing like just a good mix of restricted Pokemon in general. Maybe there's been like a few balance changes, I think, for the most part, but like a lot of these restricted Pokemon that or combos that you've seen that are just doing well in this tournament right here, they're not really different from what we saw after like the first 2 weeks for the most part. I mean, most of this is like, oh, this can be expected. And yeah, it is pretty much to be expected. Like the only really big, unique, restricted duo really that was kind of an outlier that we just haven't seen was the winning version, which was Calyx Shadow plus Miraidon, which is kind of cool because again, the disable tech, the fast offensive pacing that this team provides, and also disable Calyx Shadow Rider does make the Miraidon mirror a bit easier, because a lot of the annoyance part is, of course, the choice specs Miraidons facing off against each other, and if you're able to disable that opposing choice specs Miraidon, it just makes it so much easier for yours to handle. So yeah, not really too much to say here. A lot of the compositions pretty much what you would expect to see, and yeah, I don't really have too much to say other than that. But however, Portland was a big shakeup. Portland regionals was a huge shakeup to the meta, because if you look at Portland usage, like there's some surprises, there's some big shockers if you actually look through the usage stats. So I don't have the actual usage stats on me. However, this was a tournament players did realize there were a lot of Kyogres and a lot of Groudons actually, or not like a huge ton of Groudons, but there were 2 Groudons that were able to make top cut at least, as you could see from 9th and 10th place here. And they did pretty well. I think they were the highest seeds in Swiss, if I'm not mistaken, with both of them like X1 going into the top cut asymmetrical bracket. And I think they both had buys, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Groudon was able to do really well at this event, alongside the fact that Kyogre usage just shot up exponentially. Like if you had looked at the usage stats, Kyogre was a really high paired restricted. And you might be wondering, why is Kyogre rising so much? And I think I've said this before, where Kyogre is a good mod, don't get me wrong. Like powerful water spouts are hard to switch into, origin pulses, even the hydro pump is incredible. The problem is its accuracy isn't as consistent. So if you are able to hit your moves, you still have a really good time, because it can be very oppressive. And I believe this tournament was 10 Swiss rounds. Yeah, it was 10 Swiss rounds, so one less Swiss round than some of the other regionals out there. However, one less round that you have to worry about hitting a hydro pump or origin pulse. Of course, it's just interesting because I felt like a lot of the Kyogres just in general did well in this tournament. There were a bunch of them, and a lot of a shocker, which was Miraidon usage was severely decreased. And I think it was just players trying to adapt and maybe worried about not using the Miraidon as much, because Miraidon was so dominant, right? It won the first big regionals both in North America, and it did win the Utrecht Special event. Like both were based on Miraidon, so a lot of players did know to respect the Miraidon, and we had seen quite a few of adjustments, right? And we can see them actually in Portland, for instance, which I'll go over. So we have the first place team, which was Calyx Kyogre, and this was actually a duo that actually ended up doing pretty well. I was able to get first place by Gavin Michaels and third place by Carrie. And yeah, so we can go over Gavin's winning team first, which Grimmsnarl, of course, a Pokemon that's been really popular in this restricted format, with just screens being really good, Thunderwave. But interesting enough, Gavin did decide to run Thunderwave on the Grimmsnarl, but it makes sense on Calyx Kyogre, because in a lot of cases you're probably relying more on Trick Room Cali Ice than you are Thunderwave Grimmsnarl for the speed control. And since you're running slow Pokemon like the Amoonguss and the Calyx Ice Rider, even if you get a Thunderwave off, it tends to be Amoonguss or Cali Ice would probably be slower. You also don't want to disrupt like Amoonguss from going for spores, for instance. So having Sucker Punch as a way that can punish like Calyx Shadow Rider stuff, be able to break Focus Ashes on that Pokemon or clean it up after it takes like a Water Spout or Origin Pulse or Glacial Lance, is actually a pretty strong factor here. And then we have the Amoonguss Calyx Ice Rider Kyogre is a pretty strong pairing. Of course, Amoonguss Pollen Puff is just really great on a bulky Calyx Ice Rider, and of course Kyogre pairs well with Redirection Water Spout, able to do a ton of damage. As I said before, I think I've been saying this for so long, and I think we've started noticing this trend. I think like the first couple weekends of like regulation I have been all these Kyogres running water spout, origin pulse, ice beam, and now we're actually, I think, seeing a more uprise in this Kyogre, which I think should have been the case, which is the triple water Kyogre. I think triple water Kyogre is the best way to go on Kyogre, because especially on like Cali Ice Kyogre, it makes even more sense. But like just in general, the Hydro Pump, sometimes you just got to play around the wide guard, man. Sometimes you just have to have Hydro Pump as much as you hate it, because you got to connect, because that is something that you just can't let Kyogre waste turns. You can't let Kyogre waste the turns of rain that it has. You have to get damage with Kyogre. So having the Hydro Pump with the triple water moves, it makes more sense on Cali Ice, of course, because you already had the ice coverage with the restricted Pokemon. So your job as Kyogre is to just break through your powerful water type moves, and you need a way to hit Zamazenta through wide guard, especially on this kind of restricted Pokemon, because otherwise Zamazenta is a really tough Pokemon to break through. You kind of need Hydro Pump in order to break through Zamazenta on this team. Like, it's actually required. And then still with the trend of the Elite Calyx Ice Rider, this one actually going to go with the Terra Fairy typing. I guess it is again a good defensive neutral typing. We saw Calyx Ice Rider with Fairy Terra end up winning one of the later Reg G events. And yeah, I mean, it's still pretty strong defensive Terra, right? Because Zacian's not really a common Pokemon that we see too much recently. So running the Terra Fairy, because you don't want to really overlay like a water Terra when you already have like 2 water types on your team, especially Kyogre. Generally you bring it against like most Pokemon, so it makes sense opting for a different Terra type like Fairy, and not having like Grass, because the Sun matchup can be a little bit rough, I suppose. You have Basculegion, which is a Pokemon we haven't seen, but it's a good Pokemon for a fast offensive KO. Like, you could lead Kyogre plus Basculegion, threaten a lot of damage with your Wave Crash. A Last Respect could be really good in an end game cleanup scenario, especially if you keep Basculegion to back. Could be coming after Trick Room's over. Your Mons probably took damage or got knocked out. Then you bring out the Basculegion, and that Last Respect is ready to clean up. You also have like the Flutter Mane here, which is an interesting choice because we don't really see Flutter Mane and Kyogre paired up too much. But it does make sense because, one, Taunt is really good against like a Moongiz opposing Grimmsnarl, that you don't have to worry about like screens and stuff. Spores you don't have to worry about nearly as much. So being able to shut down Grimmsnarl opposing a Moongiz, just a bunch of other things in general. Having that fairy coverage is also just really nice, being able to hit Grimmsnarl for like a 2-shot, directing Koraidons, because what's nice about like the Focus Sash Flutter Mane is you can lead like Flutter Mane Kyogre. And I think Gavin did do this on stream in the finals, where he was able to threaten the Koraidon, and like it was either threatened by Moonblast or Icy Wind Water Spout. So it was a really nice way to really punish the Koraidons, especially if they were forced to Terra Fire. You're hitting them with the Water Spout. If they don't Terra, they're going down to Moonblast, and they have to worry about it. Especially like the Koraidons have been running the Life Orb and the Ability Shield recently. So it's been a pretty powerful tool there. So that was Gavin's team. He was able to win that event. And the second place ended up with the Calyx Shadow Rider Koraidon, which was a team that we have seen previously. It was able to win the Melbourne Regional Championship the weekend before. I believe there's probably a few small adjustments, but overall pretty much the same here, right? Running Covert Cloak on the Weezing with the Poison Gas is a way that can you just chip away at the lead at the opponent. The Ability Shield Koraidon really strong with the Weezing lead, because you could lead Weezing Calyx Shadow Rider or Weezing Koraidon. And then you just have the really powerful of the Sun mode, right? With this Choice Scarf Chiyu with that Beats of Ruin and the Sun, the Astral Barrage from the Calyx Shadow Rider for fast offense, the speed boosting Walking Wake with Snarl and a Salva, so it can actually switch into Shadow Rider and it can actually be able to tank the damage, which is kind of nice. And then the Rocky Helmet Brubane, which provides Spore, the Sucker Punch Pressure, Rage Powder Redirection, and of course getting that defense booster in Sun just makes it be able to tank attacks in general. It's a really strong disruptive team because neutralizing gas, being able to shut down abilities, again like Miraidon's ability, being able to taunt the Calyx Ice Riders and any set of Pokemon so that they can't go for like a Trick Room, for instance, which just makes the team more stronger. In general, Covert Cloak means you can't lead like a Fake Out Mon next to it. Like we saw, I think the first version like James Evans getting top 16 at the first regional championship with the safety goggles. I mean, the cover cloak is just a better choice in general and been better for those fake out scenarios. And then, yeah, pretty much not much else to say. It is a build that's just been very popular. It's very oppressive, especially into teams that rely on the biz like Rhydons, Weathermons like Kyogre, and more. So this team, no surprise to see it do well and get second place there. And then we have Carry with another Calyx Ice Kyogre that was able to get third place, featuring Thunder Kyogre, which was a interesting one, but I guess it's just to be able to hit opposing Water Urshifu, which is a combo that can be a little bit annoying to Calyx Ice Rider plus Kyogre, as well as just like opposing Kyogre's Urshifu, Terra Waters in general. So interesting not to run Origin Pulse, but I guess Thunder can be really nice for the instant KOs if you absolutely need it. The Calyx Ice Rider Kyogre build, I mean, this build has actually been a pretty common thing in Japan since, like, I think the early starts. It was really good, especially during the Japan ladder tour. That was their qualifier for Japan Nats. Similar compositions to this 6 was also used in that tour and have been on stadium ladders. So finally we're seeing it here in North America really just be able to disrupt. We have Calyx Ice Kyogre. Iron Jugulis was a Pokemon they like to use. We saw Amoonguss, and then usually we saw the other 2 slots be fillers. I think the team that ended up winning had Raging Bolt and the Iron Treads, if I'm not mistaken, over like Rillaboom Ursh, or maybe it was Rillaboom even over Iron Jugulis. I do know there were some Iron Jugulis, Kyogre, Calyx Ice builds in Japan that were popular, and it's just like a really strong combination, right? Because you have this Iron Jugulis that's a bit more flexible than Torn, mainly because the combo Kyogre plus Calyx Ice Rider doesn't exactly appreciate Astral Barrage. So you have the Speed Booster Iron Jugulis that's able to provide Tailwind and go for a Snarl. It's a bit better against Roaring Moon because the fact that you have Hurricane, which is 100% accurate, a more consistent flying type attack that's able to hit more powerfully than rely on going for like Terra Flying Acrobatics, because this means you don't have to rely on your Terra, which is pretty nice for the Iron Jugulis compared to Roaring Moon, because you had to go for like Terra Flying for Acrobatics to actually do much damage with the Roaring Moon. So the Iron Jugulis here being a nice mod, especially benefiting again from the rain itself. Running both grasses like Amoonguss and Rillaboom, this is just so much shutdown into Miraidon teams because you have both grass types here. You have Rillaboom with Cali Ice, you have Terra Grass on Kyogre. It's really hard for Miraidon to really break through like these Pokemon when there is like all of this with Calyx Ice Rider, Rillaboom, and Amoonguss that's just waiting to shut down that Miraidon, especially even with Snarl Iron Jugulis, which just means the Draco Meteors are doing a lot less damage into like the Calyx Ice Rider and the Terra Grass Kyogre. And then the Life Orb Rapid Strike Urshifu, which I like as an adjustment because of the fact that really just powerful close combats into Terapagos, which is really nice, which the team might struggle a bit into otherwise. And then more powerful Surging Strikes in Rain and running Terra Grass. Like, it's just hard to snipe it with the common Grassy Glides or Thunderclap. So just having the extra power in the rain. So it's a really strong combo. We see the Terra Grass Seed Bomb Cali Ice, which is a really unique tech here because you do have like the Pokemon that you would want to hit the water resist that Kyogre doesn't like dealing. A lot of the, of course, typings that resist the water type moves end up being Grass and Dragon, as well as opposing waters. You have Ice that covers the Dragon and the Grass type attacks. So having the Seed Bomb, which is a Grass type move that is just able to hit the waters and the Terra waters, is really nice. And then paired up with Rillaboom, it actually does a decent amount of damage in that grassy terrain with the same type attack bonus that it gets from Terra. Like, it just makes so much sense to be able to run that combination. Ended up going with the Nevermelt Ice, which more powerful Glacial Lance is at the risk of Intimidate, but it is a little bit strange to bring in Incineroar in the matchup when you do have Kyogre Ursh as well. So if they are bringing in Incineroar, that's one mon that could be claimed by Water Spout. So makes a lot of sense here, and was able to get third place. A great showing by Carry. And then the rest, we have seen like fourth and fifth place, Aaron Brock, Montana Mott bringing the pretty much very similar builds. Even like Emilio getting the top 16 with a similar build to what they were running. with the Calyx Shatter Zamazenta. And yeah, this has been just a build we've been talked about, I think, in the previous episode, where I don't know who was the first user, because I know Spain and Japan were both really into this kind of common six. You had the Shadow Rider Zamazenta, you had Chien Pao, Raging Bolt, Amoonguss, Tinglu. Sometimes they would have Rillaboom over the Tinglu. But this has just been a very common six over like the weekend over Portland and the weekend before Portland. Like, this team was pretty utilized. And yes, let's go over what Aaron was using. We have pretty much just a few slight differences sets, but in general, it's always going to be the Calyx Shatterer plus the Zamazenta. They tend to run like the Focus Sash Calyx Shatterers on these builds with Encore, standard Zamazenta. The Terras might differ. Sometimes they're water, sometimes they're dragon, sometimes they're fire, but pretty much the same things. There are some differences usually in like the Raging Bolt items. Sometimes a lot of them have been running Magnet for the powerful electric type moves, because usually if you're running Shadow plus Chien Pao, one of them's holding Focus Sash, the other's holding a Life Orb, which means you go for a different item on the Raging Bolt. Sometimes they run Booster Energy, sometimes they run Assault Vest, and sometimes they run Magnet. And it makes sense, I think, for Magnets to be run on the Raging Bolt, because I think on with Raging Bolt, you would probably want the extra power if like you do fight a Sun team. So having the Magnet boost combined with the Terra Electric plus a special attack boost from the Sun just makes more sense, because Raging Bolt's going to be more helpful into the Sun matchup than anything. So I think bring Magnet Raging Bolt makes a ton of sense. The Assault Vest Tinglu, which is just a tech for those Miraidon matchups, especially with Grimmsnarl, because that matchup's not fun for Calyx Shadow Rider Zamazenta consistently, especially if you're not a Terra type on Calyx Shadow Rider that's just immune to the Thunder Waves, because otherwise the entire team gets Thunder Waved and it's really annoying. So you just have multiple answers. You have like this Max Speed, Ice Spinner, Chien Pao. You have the Tinglu, which can just be very disruptive. You have the Sand Tomb and Ruination alongside Snarl to just be able to like lower the damage, especially from the Miraidon, especially because it's an annoying Pokemon there. And then Stone Edge, which was interesting that Aaron brought, but I believe this is probably for Ho-Oh, because otherwise the Calyx Shadow or Zamazenta do not appreciate Ho-Oh. So having a way that can just direct in like Ho-Oh Miraidon teams just makes a ton of sense, especially because you're not really dealing that much damage with the Tinglu. You're more importantly just chipping them away, probably for Shadow Rider or Zamazenta to clean up like a Miraidon, for instance. So you don't need the immediate like stomping tantrum damage. You kind of just need to chip away. But the mon that probably is the most annoying is probably the Ho, and you want to force it to Terra, so Body Press from Zamazenta can actually chunk it for a lot. So makes a ton of sense. And then the 5th place Montana was able to get a pretty similar thing. Magnet Raging Bolt, a more common staple. The Rocky Helmet Amoonguss, Life Orb Pow, Focus Ash, Encore, Shadow Rider, with the Assault Vest Rillaboom as their way to handle the rate or the Miraidon teams a bit better. And then as you can see, it's Terrifier Zamazenta. Again, they all kind of vary, but pretty much the same, similar builds, pretty much. Not really too much to say. It's just personal preference. Emilio, again, I did notice had pretty similar things, running the Cornerstone Ogerpon instead of what was the Rillaboom or the Tinglu on a team, having knockoff. And knockoff Cornerstone is to help out enable the Spore on Amoonguss, like get rid of safety goggles, for instance, since you don't have like an Incineroar, so you can go for like knockoff into Spore combos with the Amoonguss. That's why like a few of the balanced teams have picked up knockoff on Cornerstone Ogerpon, especially the ones that do have Amoonguss, like on the Terapagos Calyx Shadow Rider teams. It's something I forgot to mention, I think, in the previous episode. But yeah, knockoff on Cornerstones just made sense. Actually ran Brick Break for the the dual screens just because of how annoying Chien Pao plus the what's it called? Chien Pao plus the or how annoying Grimmsnarl was. Just Grimmsnarl just being so annoying with screens. Brick Break kind of was a tool to scare them away from going Grimmsnarl lead and clicking screens, so that was nice. Assault Vest Raging Bolt here on this build, Terra Water on the Zamazenta, Encore Shadow Rider. I mean, it's pretty much the same builds as the most part. Then we see like Calyx Shadow Rider plus Zamazenta in 6th place by Justin Wan. Running the Dundoza Tatsugiri with the Galarian Weezing plus the Brubonnet. Then we have Polar Bear Giovanni running the Lunala Koraidon Sun team with Chiyu, Fluttermane, Brubonnet, and Ursaluna, a build we've seen him use previously, and he's just been really crushing it, I think, this season. I think this was like, what, his 3rd top 8, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in a row. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure I've seen him in like 3 top 8s at least this season alone. Len, who was able to use the standard Calyx Shatter Terapagos. It's just interesting because like Len is just a player who's always used like sand for the most part, with like Sandville, Garchomp, Tyranitar, and usually there's a Corviknight, but now it's just like there's no sand here. It's just literally standard balance, and he's actually able to perform well, so kudos to him. And then we have the Groudon teams, which was able to get 9th and 10th place here, where the first one we have the bulk up Groudon, which was an interesting mon. And I did say that Groudon did have a chance to shine in the previous Baekfast Club, and yeah, it did perform 1 week later. Who knew? Who knew? Although it did perform in Australia as well, but like Groudon did have a moment to sneak in and actually accomplish something, even though let me just say Precipice Blades Groudon is if you're using it. But yep, Clear Emily Groudon with the bulk up. You have support Volcarona, which is just really annoying for Calyx Shadow or Zamazenta teams. You have Tailwind and Strugglebug with Rage Powder that's just able to shut them down. Shuckleberry and Incineroar, which is actually like a really interesting take, but of course having a switch into like Landis Incarnate is always appreciated. And the Ursaluna Headlong Rush, I suppose, if intimidated, I think you can survive. So there's that. The support Fluttermane dropping the Shadow Ball, the Assault Vest Miraidon with the Screens Grimmsnarl. It's just an interesting team because it has like, okay, it has the defensive mode with the screens, making Groudon, Miraidon pretty generally Pokemon. Incineroar, Volcarona, of course, double fire, which can be really good into like, again, more common builds like the Shadow Rider stuff, the Zamazenta stuff in general, and even the Cali Ice matchups. And you have Miraidon for the Kyogre as well. Groudon can also help technically deal with Kyogre by having the rain up, but also like against opposing Miraidon. So it makes sense that I was able to do well here. And then the other Groudon, which was, I believe, a bit more of a offensive build, which was interesting, which was the Assault-Vest Groudon, which of course is just able to do a good amount of damage with the Precipice Blades, has the high horsepower axis, which is nice against a wide guard. He crashed with the Fire Terra, really strong in the sun, and Stone Edge, which is able to hit flying types, and again Ho, which could be nice. I don't think the team needs to hit Ho when you have Raging Bolt as well, but or with Life Orb offensive Raging Bolt, but can be really nice for a last move if you don't have like a move that you really need. Otherwise, you have the Choice Scarf Chiyu with the Fluttermane, a really strong combination in the sun, especially with that Life Orb special attack photosynthesis in the sun. Like Raging Bolt's able to do a ton of damage. And then Jumpluff, which we haven't seen too much of in the format, but Jumpluff has done really well. Regulation H, especially by Joseph Ugarte, was also able to do well in the, what was it, Regulation C? I think it was Regulation C Portland when Joe won with that as well. But yeah, we haven't really seen it too much in restricted Pokemon, mainly because it's not been a Pokemon that's been popular, because Groudon's not been popular, so Sun hasn't been popular. However, it has been having a few placements recently, and yeah, here we see it at the regional championship, getting top 16 with the Covert Cloak Jumpluff, running Pollen Puff, which is great on bulky Pokemon like Calyx Ice Rider, as well as the Groudon. You have the Rage Powder support, draw away the attacks from the frailer like Chiyu, a Fluttermane, and the Raging Bolt. You have Tailwind, of course, to help out your Pokemon, just outspeed stuff. It's just a good support Pokemon. What else to say? I mean, and then the Calyx Ice Rider. This was definitely probably like similar to Suika's version, where you have the imprisoned Cali Ice, but instead of the body press, because his team isn't as weak to Zamazenta because you have a Chiyu and a Groudon, go imprison Leech Seed because you shut down like the Cali Ice. If they're the Leech Seed Cali Ice on the opposing side, you just auto win because you get imprison up, and the only thing they can do is protect. So it's just funny because we don't really see Leech Seed too much, and even running Citrus Berry on the Cali Ice instead of like leftovers, which is just interesting. But I guess just wanting more for the immediate healing just in case. So yeah, definitely an interesting team for the most part. Like Jump Pluff plus Imprison leads to Kali Ice, because that's how much it just rose in usage after the Utrecht special event especially. And then there really isn't too much to say other than I think, yeah, there really wasn't too much to say. I mean, everything else you would pretty much expect. Another Terapagos plus Shadow Rider, another Calix Shadow Rider Zalmazenta, this time running more of a standard build with Ensign, Ogerpon Heartflame, more of a standard support one with more of an offensive Shadow Rider. This one opting for Nasty Plot, Life Orb, Terra Dark. And yeah, it's just really offensive Pokemon, like more of a balanced core. Shien Pao is just able to enable the Zalmazenta, more of like Incineroar, Rillaboom, Ogerpon, Heartflame, Redirection, Fake Out, Double Fake Out, Parting Shot, U-Turn, alongside the Shadow Rider plus Zalmazenta that was able to do well. And yeah, otherwise, there was Zacian Kyogre that was able to get 15th place here by Kean Campbell. It was the same build that was able to do well at the Utrecht special event. I think it also got top 16. Like that was also the, or maybe it was top 8, but I know that a French player did use Zacian Kyogre Roaring Moon, like this exact 6, in order to do well there. And then, yeah, I mean, not really much else to say. Sometimes we also saw like another Zacian Kyogre. Again, Kyogre tended to be more popular at this event. That's what happens when I guess you drop Miraidon usage and when it has the perfect time, because again, Kyogre is really threatening to Calix Ice Rider, which was one of the most popular restrictions. I mean, Miraidon usage was still pretty decently high for the most part. However, if you build a more efficient Kyogre team, there's not really much, because in order to get the damage on the Kyogre, you have to get an attack off of Miraidon. And if you partner with some strong redirections like the Amoonguss, when you have a Pokemon like Zacian or Calix Ice threatening the Miraidon, it has to play a bit scared. And then you also have the defensive Kyogre, which the Terra Grass will always change up how the Miraidon wants to target the Kyogre as well. So there's always a few ways to shut it down. I don't think there are any like really unique Pokemon. I mean, there was a Thundurus in top 16, which I think was like just Thunderwave Rain Dance, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was Thunderwave Rain Dance with Eerie Impulse and Wobble Storm. I mean, it's nice to have Eerie Impulse, I think, on Thundurus, especially when a lot of the Miraidon teams have just been dropping the Rigraff, so they don't have to worry about like getting blocked by Armor Tail. So you can actually shut down Miraidon or slow them down a lot more with that Eerie Impulse. Alongside Rain Dance, it's just really good because the Sun matchup's always a little bit scary with this team. So it does make a lot of sense there. But a lot of these restricted combos, I mean, they're not really too much anything special. The big shakeup really was the fact that just Kyogre usage ended up being super high at this event. The Kali Ice Kyogre especially being able to get first and third place. A really strong restricted duo that's been very popular in Japan, but wasn't really popular here until this event. Like this is the first event it really broke out in North America, or I guess in the West in general. So really cool to see it there. Zacian Kyogre actually able to make an appearance. I think just like Kyogre players just hit their moves. Kyogre players just had good runs, hit their moves, had a more favorable field because like there were a lot of Shadow Riders at this event. And even Groudon was decently popular compared to like what it was previously, so that's always appreciated. So it was just like the perfect storm for Kyogre to take advantage of. And yeah, I think that's the best way I could describe this event pretty much. So that was the Portland Regional Championship, which was the final North American Regional Championship. So Kyogre able to hit it home and to take a win in Regulation I. Then we have some more events that have happened, but first, to conclude May, we have the Battle Stadium usage, and we don't really have too much info on this. No one really posted because a lot of the top players were from Japan. Like we had Suika and we had Rizabeth end up getting first and second place, and they're probably preparing for Japan Nationals because I think they're both qualified. So a lot of these players just don't share the teams just because of the fact that they have the Japan Nationals. Is understandable. They want to keep their team secret as possible. Like even from the top 10 usage that we look, like we see Shadow Rider Calyrex standard balance being pretty good. Like it was able to make at least minimum 3 out of the top 10 slots. We have like Miraidon Lunala in 4th place, and we saw Alias Terapagos, which is an interesting build by the 2024 Japan Nats champion. But otherwise, yeah, there really isn't too much to say. There's not really like, again, many players that are sharing the teams for the most part. I think there was one shared. I mean, Moody Muck plus Spherical and Dundoza Tatsugiri. Yeah. But yeah, like there isn't really share too much. It's funny because the share team is laid the Rhyperior team with Calyx Shatter plus Zamazenta in 26th place. But yeah, we don't really have much information on this Battle Stadium last season, and we'll probably have more info about like what will do well from like this season probably going into Japan Nats. But yeah, I mean, you don't really get much usage from Battle Stadium, but it's always interesting to note like what restricted duos like players are using that are doing well on the stadium ladder seasons. Next Pokemon or next team we have is, or next event we have is the Master Ball League from Hong Kong. If you don't know, there's like several Master Ball Leagues. I didn't know. Apparently they just have the same branding, which is like, we had the Thailand one last time. That's the one where Scraggy was able to get second place. And then we have at the first weekend of June, we have the Hong Kong Master Ball League with 85 players. And yeah, this was, I wouldn't say a big shakeup in the meta because a lot of these we kind of seen for the most part. I mean, we have like, for instance, first place was Zamazenta Miraidon. I mean, this is basically what we've seen throughout the beginning of Regulation I for the most part, except you just get rid of the Ditto because Ditto's been underperforming, I think, in usage recently because it can be inconsistent depending on like what restricted you have. So it's harder to set up Ditto than you probably think. And then like when you get it set up, it's like, okay, what do you want to set up against? If you want to set up against a Zamazenta, you're locked into body press, which means you're not really doing much into the Shadow Rider on those builds. And if you're locked into Shadow Rider, if you get called out on the wide guard, I mean, Focus Sash you can utilize, but I think it's just really hard because you have to be really flexible in your game plans to use Ditto. So you haven't seen Ditto usage as much just because of like, A, you can't really transform into like Terapagos stuff. B, it's just like one less general game plan mon that you have to find because you have two restrictors, of course, in each. I think it was able to do well in Regulation G because you tended to just try to copy that one restricted in those certain matchups like Shadow Rider. Balance cores, you would use the Ditto on this 6 to generally go for the copy on the Shadow Rider. You would copy the Ice Rider in a lot of cases, go for Glacials. But it's a lot harder to plan out when there are two restricteds on the board, and like which one you can copy can definitely just vary because of like board placement and getting knocked out quickly. So it just makes sense to get rid of the Ditto, which has been probably the weaker link of the team, and replace it with a more consistent way of like Xian Pao. I think we also saw this too in the VR challenge, if I'm not mistaken, like the Xian Pao stuff that was able to do well. Yeah, there was like something similar, I guess, in 10th. Thought there was one more that had it, but oh yeah, no, it was 4th place. It was 4th place. It was also able to get 4th place here, so it just makes a lot of sense going with a more consistent mon because it makes the Zamazenta more threatening because of the fact that the problem with the original build, it wasn't really built for enabling Zamazenta. Zamazenta was just kind of there, right? It was a wide guard mon, it could switch in, but it wasn't enabled to actually get more value out of the Zamazenta. It was just the Zamazenta was there. Now with the Xian Pao, you can actually enable that damage with the Zamazenta for the body press, so it makes the Zamazenta more threatening in general, while Xian Pao of course can help like scare away opposing Miraidon, forcing Terra. Xian Pao hands is always a good combination, so it just makes sense that Xian Pao has just been more utilized on this 6. But yeah, it was able to win the Hong Kong Master Ball League with pretty much what you would expect. No Volt Switch since you don't really need the Ditto on this team as much, so you don't really have to reposition for the transforms. So just going with like the standard Iron Hand set, Quaverdan's Volcarona alongside the Lake Clay Grimmsnarl just makes a lot of sense. Getting the screens up, being pretty threatening to the Zamazenta Shadow Rider cores, and then of course offensive offensive Miraidon with choice specs next to screens Grimmsnarl alongside the Zamazenta. Really hard to break through in general. So that was the team that was able to win there. Second place was Binji, which is a player from China, which was able to get second place, which is also cool because I do not think he would have got he would not have got his invite without this. So he was able to get an invite without playing many events, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he's played an event this season. He might have played one or two, but I don't think he really has been playing. So it's actually really cool to see. Ended up running this Choice Specs Miraidon alongside Leftovers Calyx Ice Rider. Of course, we've seen the combo before, but no screens actually. Running Rillaboom with Grassy Surge, Grassy Terrain plus Leftovers, of course, a really strong combo. Incineroar for the balance core. You have Annihilate, which I love seeing Annihilate because I think Annihilate is just a good mon in general, especially in this kind of format where Final Gambit is just super threatening. Able to snipe a target and get rid of it, especially restricted, is such a good trade-off. So having the Final Gambit, also having coaching, which is cool for the Cali Ice, especially because +1 attack, +1 defense, negate intimidate, decreases scare away intimidate mons just because you have Defiant. I think it's just a really cool combo. And to boost the bulk on the Cali Ice even further, you have the Urshifu with the Covert Cloak and the Dark Ursh. I actually really like Dark Ursh right now. I think Dark Ursh is definitely a Pokemon that has more to explore, just because I think Miraidon and Terra or Grimmsnarl has been a little bit on the decreasing side towards the end of the last couple of weekends leading up to NIC. So I think Dark Ursh probably has some potential. I still think you need a way to counter, of course, Grimmsnarl and Miraidon. I think Urshifu Dark, especially like next to a Zacian team, has a lot more potential. It's something I've been looking into exploring, but I think it actually does have quite a bit, just because I think Lunala's been picking up. Of course, you have the Shadow Riders out there. I think Dark Ursh is a bit of an unexplored mon at the current moment, but yeah, congrats to Benji for getting second place with the Annihilate Calyx Ice Rider Miraidon stuff, which is cool to see. Then we have third place, also using the same team as first place with the Zamazenta Miraidon stuff. Calyx Ice Rider plus Miraidon paired with Iron Treads and Pelipper Urshifu with Rain. Standard Calyx Shadow Zamazenta in fifth. Ho-Oh Miraidon with Annihilate in sixth place. Seventh place was a very offensive Rain team with Kyra Zamazenta, along with Torn Landorus Incarnate with Raging Bolt Rillaboom that was able to threaten a lot of damage. It's a really offensive one. Choice Scarf Kyura with Terra Ghosts just to shut down the fake outs and just dish out as much damage as possible, chip them away so Body Press is able to do a ton. You have Life Orb, Landorus Incarnate that's just able to do a lot. Terra Grass is an interesting Terra type because I guess I'm trying to think. I guess it's just for water type moves, especially like Surging Strikes Urshifu, because you don't really need the Terra Grass for Amoonguss, I feel like, in most cases. I mean, both of them are running Terra Grass. Terra Grass makes sense on the Zamazenta to avoid spores, but interesting to see Grass on the Landorus. I guess you still want to resist electric, or you still want to resist electric moves. Don't want to be vulnerable to opposing Raging Bolt, so you don't run Terra Water. So I guess it does make sense. Otherwise, pretty just offensive Rain team in general. Then we have Miraidon Cal the Ice in 8th, and I mean pretty much like a lot of these cores is what you would see. We see a Rhydon in 10th place, but a lot of these cores just Miraidon plus the Calyx Ice Rider, Koraidon plus Shadow Rider. A lot of these are just mons that we've pretty much seen. I mean, 16th place is definitely an interesting one here with Choice Band Groudon with the Gravity Sableye plus the Focus Sash, Tailwind Hypnosis Yanmega, which was at least the Gravity plus the Yanmega stuff was pretty similar to the team that I think in Regulation F, was it F? I think so, where there was a Yanmega and a Executor team that was able to do really well in Japan Nats qualifier, if I'm not mistaken, and it qualified to play for Japan Nats. That was a crazy team, and I think this is kind of like a similar one. Like, this team is just crazy. Like, when you look at actually this team, I never noticed it actually until like going over this, because it completely missed my eye. But this is cool. It has Gravity Sableye with Eject button, so you get the momentum by switching in and not having the Sableye stuck around. Weather Ball Life Orb Venusaur with Sleep Powder. You have Mental Herb Cali Ice with Gravity, Taunt, and Trick Room, which is, this Cali Ice might be one of the most unique Cali Ices I've ever seen in my life, with a Selfless, Terra Water, Incin. Yeah, this is one crazy team with Choice Band, Terra Ground, Groudon with really strong precipice plays. This is a cool one. I was able to get top 16 there. But yeah, Otherwise, I don't think there's anything too super outstanding. I mean, I think it's like Zamazenta Miraidon's like bigger win. But yeah, otherwise, I wouldn't really say like, oh, this is something we haven't seen before. It's just probably the highest placement of like the duo that we have seen pretty much for the most part. And yeah, that's the Hong Kong Master Ball League. Next, we will go on to the Bologna Special event, which was the big one in the first weekend of June. And yeah, there were 684 masters, the final event in EU with 11 Swiss rounds. And the finals, a Calac Shadow Rider Zamazenta mirror. What else to say? I mean, I'm not surprised that Calac Shadow Rider Zamazenta is one. It's a really good, consistent, or not well, I do think it is one of the strongest duos, and I mean it is consistent mainly because they have good placements, but also like their moves just don't miss. Like that is always a big plus in general. But yeah, we have seen the Terra Dark Life of Calac Shadow Rider stay out on top with Taunt Xian Pao. I guess it's for like, I mean, it was able to do work. It was able to shut down like a Clefairy on stream. It's able to like shut down like Wide Guard on opposing Zamazenta, prevent protects, screens on the Grimmsnarl or Thunderwave because you can protect the partner, go for taunt, and they can't Thunderwave you to following turns. So that's always nice. This one running Assault Vest, Terra Fairy, Incineroar. If I'm not mistaken, this was also Max Speed Incineroar. So because it was a very fast Incineroar stream, I'm pretty sure it was Max Speed. And that would be the second time that Incineroar Max Speed has won a regional this regulation, even in the 1 month time span, I suppose. With Rocky Helmet Amoonguss, with Pollen Puff, of course, good classic. Magnet Raging Bolt with Terra Electric, just strong. And then the Terra Dragon Zamazenta. Not like groundbreaking text, but just a good consistent duo. And congrats to Mateo for being able to win the event. And then Ruben, who actually was the winner of this event, this same exact event last year, almost able to claim a 2-time special championship win here, but unfortunately did fall a little bit short. Running again, Calac Shadow Rider Zamazenta, a few different changes though. There's a water Terra type on the Zamazenta. There's a Rillaboom over the Amoonguss. Still a Terra Electric Raging Bolt. Sludge Bomb on the Amoonguss instead of Pollen Puff because it's running the Encore on the Calac Shadow Rider instead of the Nasty Plot. And then Taunt Life Orb on the Xian Pao. But yeah, pretty much just same thing, but doesn't really rely on the Nasty Plot setup Shadow Rider itself. It's utilizing more just straight up damage and disruption utilizing the Encore, but still, again, really strong duo. Xian Pao enabling the Zamazenta, able to put on a lot of pressure thanks to the good natural speed of all of these three with Xian Pao, Shadow Rider, Zamazenta. Good bulky stuff with Amoonguss Raging Bolt, and then the fake out Assault Vest user. Yeah, not really too surprised. It's a good duo, and I'm not surprised that Italy did utilize it. So there was that. Then we had a team that was actually shown quite a few times on stream, which was a team that the French players brought. It's this Lunala Miraidon stuff, which was able to make 3rd place, 8th place, and 9th place. So a really great conversion. I know Red Silver Hippolyte also got day 2. I think he didn't make top cut. I think he went, if I'm not mistaken, he went 8-3. Yeah, he went 8-3. So this team actually had a really good conversion rate. It featured a little bit of a different take. So we saw Lunala Miraidon. We've talked about the core before. Of course, the one that ended up doing really well at the beginning was the Electric Seed version. But this one, quite a few different changes, running a Choice Scarf Miraidon with the leftovers Lunala. And I kind of understand the sense of it, but yeah, it's definitely a bit different from what we commonly see. So Calm Mind Lunala has been a Pokemon that's just been rising recently in general, just because of the fact that, I mean, was a thing towards the end of Regulation G, but a lot of players did switch to the Wide Guard set afterward, and then kind of realized, hey, you know what, the leftovers set is still really good. I mean, it's basically Terapagos. Like, the thing is, Terapagos is kind of similar, where Terapagos with leftovers kind of the same thing, but it's just harder because you have to conserve your Terra guaranteed. Lunala doesn't have to do that in every matchup, but it's just stronger because it actually has the general stats of a restricted Pokemon without having to commit its Terra. So Calm Mind Lunala with leftovers plus Shadow Shield is just absolutely absurd, especially with grassy terrain paired up with it too. So this team really focuses on setting up the Lunala with multiple Calm Minds because you have tools like screens with Grimmsnarl, double fake out, redirection with the Ogre Pawn, and that's what mainly the Lunala is supposed to buy the turns, get the Calm Minds, and then start sweeping from there with really strong Moongeist Beam, Moonblast. You have the Miraidon, which isn't running the Assault Vest one, it's running a Choice Scarf instead, not running Specs Eater. Doesn't have the best initial offensive damage output, but you do have stuff like Ogre Pawn, which is able to do a lot, especially when you go for the Terra. Miraidon's doing a decent amount of damage, even without like a Choice Specs in the electric terrain. And the Choice Scarf Miraidon just means that Shadow Rider, which is Lunala's public enemy #1, is forced into an awkward spot because you do have the Snarl to threaten it, as well as the strong electric type moves. So you can go for like a Snarl to lower special attack damage output. You have the Miraidon that's just like faster than like a Choice Scarf Chiyu, and then you can threaten it with the Terra Electric Drift to one shot, and then Lunala safer. So the Miraidon's more designed to be a mon that's just supposed to make it awkward for Lunala's worst matchups to deal with, specifically the Calyx Shadow Rider and the Chiyu stuff. So that's what this Choice Scarf Miraidon enabled to do. You have also just a mon that can revenge Shadow Rider KOs, because the thing is, other than Miraidon, you don't have a single thing that outspeeds Shadow Rider unless you go for Thunder Wave. That way, if you like break a sash on Shadow Rider, then your Miraidon can generally revenge KO it. So that's kind of like what this Choice Scarf Miraidon is just able to do. Otherwise, it's a pretty standard bulky kind of composition with Rillaboom, Ogre Pawn, and Incineroar, but instead of like a Shadow Rider, you're enabling a Calm Mind Lunala that's just able to take advantage of the Shadow Shield alongside with that Terra Fairy, and yeah, that just consistent healing. It doesn't have like big spread moves because the weakness of the team is you don't have the strongest initial damage output, but if you can stall out a few turns and get this Lunala boosted, it's just a massive threat that can clean up games and stick around the field. So that's the idea of that team. And we have like Lorenzo able to use a Nasty Paw, Calyx Shadow Rider, paired with Zamazenta instead of Rillaboom Raging Bull, just running Clefairy as the Follow Me direction. And I do like the Follow Me Clefairy, which is just really nice. It's a great mon with Friend Guard. Like Friend Guard with Zamazenta and Shadow Rider is just very appreciated. It just lets it for easier setup. And this one opting for Encore as the final move over like a Heal Pulse, and it's really nice in like Trick Room matches because an Ice Rider goes for Trick Room, or Ursaluna goes for Protect, activate the Flame Orb, Trick Room activates, and then Clefairy is slower than those Pokemon, so it outspeeds them in Trick Room, goes for Encore, and it locks them into awkward moves or forces them to protect. So it's a lot harder to pivot around the Clefairy and get up good positions with things that might be a bit annoying for the Shadow Rider and Zamazenta to deal with initially. Otherwise, you have like standard stuff: Rocky Helmet, Incineroar, Assault Vest, Rillaboom, the Terra Water on the Zamazenta, and Electric Raging Bull. It's just a good balanced core. Then we have again 5th place running the Shadow Rider Zamazenta, a little bit more offensive, running Ogre Pawn Heartflame with redirection with the Shein Pal, and then Fake Tears, Covercloak Tailwind on the Whimsicott alongside Substitute Shadow Rider. So a bit of an interesting one, opting for the Substitute instead. Just, I guess, because you're utilizing, if you're going to go for the KOs, you have Fake Tears on the Whimsicott as a more offensive mode. And if Shadow Rider is behind a sub, it can be very nice for certain situations, especially like next to Wide Guard Zamazenta. And yeah, it can definitely be a huge threat, because if you can't find a way the Shadow Rider because it's behind a Substitute and a bunch of other things that could affect it, it's just really nice in general. Good against Spore stuff, good against a lot of things. Then we have the interesting team brought by Francesco. I think Terapagos has just been on a downtrend, and I think it's, we had that big usage of Terapagos in the early. We still see it throughout the events. We really covered how Terapagos was able to do decently well and perform. For instance, at Portland, it was able to get top 8, but overall, usage on Terapagos has probably went downhill a lot since previous. But I think it's mainly because teams that just struggle to have initial offensive damage output really will have just a harder time, because you're more vulnerable to critical hits. You're vulnerable to the really strong damage output. One mistake or misposition can just cost you the game very easily. And Pokemon, like you're playing a really long game throughout these tournaments, so add up the fatigue over time. It's harder to pilot perfectly. Francesco, probably one of the best Terapagos players out there. Really different build he crafted up with Pado, and I believe Marco also used like a similar build. I think he took an initial build that Francesco and Pado also had and made some twist to it. But yeah, this is a team that Pado and Francesco used and was able to get 6th place. We have just a really interesting take. We have Electric Seed Terapagos, which, you know, leftovers with Terapagos utilizing the Terra Shell. That was a big part of utilizing Terapagos builds in general. But this one instead running Electric Seed, and the idea is, of course, Zamazenta being a big threat, just really strong physical hits in general. It really just threatens Terapagos. But if you have Electric Seed, all those physical attacks, you're able to tank a lot better. So you don't have to play as scared of them. And then in order to make up for the lack of recovery because you're running Electric Seed instead, and because you're running Miraidon, which means that Rillaboom is not a factor here, going with Sinistra instead, utilizing its Hospitality as a way to switch, because Miraidon does like to click Volt Switch a lot. You get the Sinistra and you get to go for a Hospitality, heal your Terapagos back to Terra Shell in a lot of cases, or just healing that 25% makes Terapagos a mon that can definitely take attacks. So definitely a different build of Terapagos, but definitely a unique one. We have like booster speed energy, Iron Valiant that's really disruptful into like powerful choice mons, able to go for that disable to shut down them. We have Spear Break in close combat, fast Spear Break to shut down like special attackers, as well as like, again, a fast one that's able to minus 1 special attack, means they're doing less damage to Terapagos, makes it easier for Terapagos to set up. Close combat, very nice. Fighting coverage in general, able to hit Incineroar, opposing Terapagos and more. You have still a really good balance core between Incineroar and Sinistra, which is just interesting to say Sinistra, but you do have like Parting Shots, Hospitality, Fake Out, Knockoff. I mean, you have all the good tools that like you want Terapagos to have, especially in that recovery. And the Focus Sash Sinistra, because there's like Astral Barrage, Moongeist Beam, like a lot of coverage in general that Sinistra hates, especially like Glacial Lance and Astral Barrage. It's hard, especially because you have to Terra the Terapagos, so you can't really save the Terra. There's no resist barriers that saves your Sinistra. So I'm going to Focus Sash so you enable that Sinistra is able to live at least one hit and hopefully be able to switch multiple times, getting that Hospitality to just heal the Terapagos. So it's just an interesting build there. And then the Iron Treads, which is able to have that speed booster, help against opposing Miraidons, able to be a quite offensive mon, especially with the Steel Roller and Ice Spinner coverage as well. Alongside high horsepower and Ironhead, just is able to hit hard into like the Kali Ice plus the Miraidon matchups. Opposing Miraidon just makes it easier for your Miraidon, since you don't have the initial damage output to really destroy like the opposing Miraidons. But yeah, it's just a really interesting build here that Francesco and Pado were able to craft, and it plays different from like the other Terapagoses. So you do have like the things you can do with a general balanced Terapagos team, which is heal the Terapagos, redirect, Fake Out, multiple switches in general. But have you ever played against these tools? It's because the Electric Seed calcs are very different. It allows Terapagos to change how it really wants to position with the Electric Seed, plus like Running Shot, Calm Mind, Spirit Break. Yeah, there's like just a lot that this team can factor in. So definitely a cool build. Doesn't have the most initial offensive damage output, but most Terapagos teams aren't. They're just more of getting the Calm Mind set up, and it's just nice having Miraidon, because that means you don't have to worry about like one of the things that Terapagos does lose from running the Earth Power now, because you run Earth Power for Zamazenta as it's a big threat, is because if you do run the Earth Power, you drop Substitute, which means you're vulnerable to Spore. So having that electric terrain to be able to shut down the spores from affecting Terapagos can be very helpful there. So another way you negate the weakness of not having Substitute, so you're still stronger into Moongas that way. Otherwise, another Calyx Shatter Zamazenta in 7th place. Miraidon plus Lunala. Again, this is the Carmine Lunala Miraidon that was able to do well, getting 8th and 9th place. Shadow Rider Zamazenta in 10th and 11th. And 12th was the pretty much same team as Francesco, but running the Urshifu instead, with Life Orb, Iron Treads instead of Choice Band, but pretty similar to the team that Francesco brought. And then yeah, there really wasn't too much to say. A lot of these restricted duos and the team compositions aren't exactly too shocking. I think the most shocking or change was really the Terapagos build. Like that one was a way more different compared to like the other Terapagos builds that we've seen currently. But everything else is like in range of expectation, which is not too much of a shocker. Like this was the last regional leading up towards the event. So players were just leaning towards more consistency. Some of them are going to NAIC, so they'll probably be either still using like similar builds, maybe just refining on what they brought here, or they brought the best teams that have performed well in the format and adjusted it to their take, or they're saving up for something crazy to bring it in NIC. But yeah, then we see like beyond top 16, the Calyx Ice Rider Kyogre team, the one that Kara used to get 17th here. Zacian Kyogre with a Serena with double genies, able to perform in 18th. Calyx Shatter is Almazenta with Smeargle by Torviv in 19th. Calyx Shatter Koraidon in 20th. And then Terapagos with Porygon 2 able to perform 21st. And yeah, otherwise, most of this is pretty much what you would say in range of expectation. I think like the mon that probably surprised me the most, I mean, there was like the Overquill team that was from Japan ladder actually perform well and get 40th place here, but instead of Tinglu actually replaced it for the Ursaluna. Otherwise it's the exact same build as the stall team with the Whirlwind, Life Do Ho with the Overquill, and that is always really cool to see because I really like this duo. I thought it was a really fun duo. It was one game away from top kind of event, which is really cool because this is actually pretty decent into Shadow Rider Calyx plus Zamazenta, which also because you have Whirlwind for the Shadow Rider, so it can't Life Do, and then it's just really hard to break through this. I think the most surprising Pokemon that made day 2, because a lot of the duos that you've seen is pretty much you would expect. There was a Torterra team, yeah, Torterra going 7-4, and it's just a Torterra on Miraidon Calyx Ice Rider. It just has a Torterra, and it's not even a Wide Guard Torterra. It's Leech Seed with Electric Seed, which kind of a cool set because Terra Water Leech Seed is pretty nice, but the coverage it gets because Woodhammer is able to hit like opposing Water Terras, which is nice, and Headlong Rush against opposing Miraidon, very solid, and then Shell Armor, which means it can't get crit, which means Surging Strikes is doing less damage to Torterra, so can't ignore that Electric Seed boost. So I just think that's a really neat mon. That's the mon that stood out to me, but otherwise, yeah, like I think everything else, you know, the format's been developed, not really much to say. Like I think it's pretty much what we've seen. The only difference was the different Terapagos build here. And the final weekend of, well, I guess the last weekend, a couple of days ago, because I'm recording this on a Tuesday, and this was the second weekend of June 7th to 8th, and we have 3 events. Unfortunately, we don't have info for all of them, mainly because it's still being gathered, but I'll go over what we can have, and we do have most of the important information. We have the June VR event, which was an online tour hosted by Victory Road, and had 316 players, and this was literally just a couple of days ago. And the winning team, Kean Campbell, with a little bit of adjustment, not running the Iron Hands over the Xianpao he has brought to previous regionals, like the Portland Regional Championship, but just going with what he's really comfortable with. He's done really well in the past. He was able to get top 4 at, I believe it was the Los Angeles Regional Championship, utilizing Zacian with a Tornadus or Shifu Rapid Strike, Xianpao, Zacian, and I think it was like Umbreon he used, and then I forgot what the last Pokemon was, but now he's just using what he was back to Tailwind stuff with Surging Strikes or Shifu. The Zacian, Xianpao has Kyogre, so has the rain mode, and then opting for Amoonguss is the last. And yeah, like overall, Zacian Kyogre just really strong. Swords Dance, triple water move. I love to see it. I think it's the best set. I really do think it's the best set. It's literally like Ice Beam is just so weak, and you have ice coverage. Just have ice coverage on another mon that is better. Ice Beam is just so weak, man. But yeah, Kyogre, Flash Plate, just able to do a lot. You have the Tailwind, Roaring Moon, the Taunt, Urshifu, opting no close combat, which is interesting. But when you do have Sacred Sword on the Xianpao for your fighting coverage, and really Urshifu in rain, just hitting so hard with the Rain Boost, the Mystic Water, the Terra Water, if you go for it, just hits really hard. it's just a great team in general if you're able to play well and hit your moves. Because of course you do have play rough, you have Icicle Crash, and you have two water type moves that aren't very cooperative. But if you are able to hit your moves, very high rewards, and Keen was able to perform well and win the VR. So congrats to him. He's been utilizing this core, and maybe we'll see a really deep run at NAIC, because it seems like Kyogre's just been on such a nice uptrend, especially. Then we have stuff like Koraidon, Calc Shadow Rider, just replacing the Wheezing, which is interesting, opting for like Raging Bolt and Ability Tornadus. literally for the Wheezing teams, you have Ability Shield Tornadus, which I actually think is probably a very reasonable thing when you see all the Wheezing teams that have just been doing well. The fact that you have Ability Shield, the fact you can just go for Tailwind, and then you don't have to worry about speed ties, or in general, like, I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think that the Ability Torn is actually like really good right now. And if you're running Covert Cloak on the Brute Bonnet, why not run Ability Shield Torn? Because if you run Protect, you don't really need Covert Cloak on it, so you have a free item choice. I think Ability Shield makes a lot of sense here. Safety Goggles, Raging Bolt as a way to switch into Spore and still threaten them, especially like the rain teams that run like water Pokemon like Kyogre and Urshifu next to an Amoonguss. So you're able to hit the water types and threaten them that way. Yeah, focus that Shadow Rider with Encore, the Choice Scarf Chi with Ruination, and then the Clear Amid Koraidon. It's just a strong rain team. Not much to say other than the Brute Bonnet running Protect over Seed Bomb that we commonly see. So no grass coverage there. And then pretty much same builds that we commonly see. Third place ran Shadow Riders, Almazenta, Miraidon with Cali Ice, but having the Ditto, which is interesting on this build. With just, I mean, it's pretty much a balanced team, but it just has Ditto, which is really cool. So it can be disrupted there. So cool to see that Ditto can still perform, even though we were talking like why it wasn't used earlier, but it still can make sense on cores. The Miraidon plus Calyx Ice Rider again, this with no Shi-Empower this time, opting for a, I think it's Incineroar. Yeah, running Incineroar over to Shi-Empower just for more support. We have Jumpluff alongside the Galarian Wheezing, so Jumpluff as a support here. Zamazenta plus Miraidon in 7th place with the Shi-Empower stuff like we saw commonly that won Hong Kong. 8th place with Lunala Miraidon. I think this is Calm Mind if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's the Calm Mind Lunala set with the Choice Guard Miraidon, Volcarona that's just very disruptive into the Shadow Rider plus the Zamazenta build. So pretty good balanced team across the board. And then stuff like Ho-Oh Shadow Rider was able to get 9th place. 10th place featured the Koraidon Shadow Rider Wheezing team. I mean, these are just teams that are pretty much fleshed out. You probably won't see anything metagame breaking here, because this is a tour. Unless you're not going to compete at NAIC, you probably don't want to reveal all your techs here unless your team's already standard for the most part. So you aren't going to be revealing too much here. Like the only thing that might be like something is like Terapagos plus Koraidon, which is a duel we saw at the beginning of the format, but has dropped off immensely again because of the fact that Terra Shell, like both of these Pokemon are kind of Terra Hogs, but also the fact that Terapagos shuts down your own sun when you do go for the terrestrialization can be like a bit of counter synergy. There's ways you could use it to reset your sun turns in some matchups, which can be helpful, but otherwise tends to be a negative to using the duo. But otherwise, yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything super crazy here. And then the final two official events that happened during the weekend, which we unfortunately don't have all the teams for, which was the Taiwan Master Ball League, which was won by a player known as Johnny, who ended up using this build with the Calyx Ice Rider Lunala. I think he used this at the beginning of the season, if I'm not mistaken. He said he got inspired again after seeing Aaron Trailer use this at the Portland Regional Championship on stream. With the Calyx Ice Rider Lunala combo, it's Power Herb, Meteor Beam, Lunala with 3 attacks. Trick Room, we have the standard high horsepower Calyx Ice Rider with the Terra Fire, the Terra Grass Miracle with the Decorate stuff, Choice Band Dark Urshifu with U-Turn, the Choice Specs Torkoal, and Indeedee. So you haven't really seen Hard Trick Room perform, but it was able to do well here, and it was able to win. So congrats to Johnny for winning the Taiwan Master Ball League with this team. And then the final event that happened is actually one of the first nationals did occur this weekend, or I guess the past weekend, which was Korean Nationals. Unfortunately, we still don't have all the results of Korean Nationals, But we do have the winning team, and this was posted by Team Korea VGC Twitter account. I will link it down below the description. It's actually cool because the user doesn't have a Twitter account. Uh, Huge shout outs, because honestly that is awesome. But I will link Korea Nationals, which you can watch down below. It's funny because Scraggy actually made second place, I think, in the seniors division of the event. So like Scraggy has had quite a few top appearances, which is funny. But this is the team that ended up winning, and it's kind of interesting. Like if you look at the six, it's like, oh, it's not anything too crazy, but there are some slight tech moves that really improve or change matches drastically. So you have a Solvest Moridon, which doesn't have Snarl, and it's not the Terra Electric set. It is actually just Terra Fairy. It is literally just like what you would run on a Choice Specs Moridon, but still opts for the Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam as an offensive coverage move, which we don't really commonly see on these Assault Vest Moridons. They usually tend to run the Snarl or the Terra Electric. So it's cool to see the Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam that's still able to do well. The Women's God here has Cobra Cloak with Terra Fire, which I guess is just for like the Chi Flutter matchups. Like make sure you don't go down to like Flame Charge, Koraidon, Glacial Lance from Kali Ice, and more. And I mean, it has Light Screen with Moonblast Tailwind. That's pretty standard for like what the Women's God's always been using. But Tickle is a move with Prankster +1 priority, which gives the target a -1 attack and -1 defense decrease, which is actually really cool because there's some implications that you can utilize with Tickle on the Whimsicott. One is a defensive tool, which means of course you are lowering the opponent's attack, so it might allow you to tank one move from a very strong physical attacker, which is always really nice. But also like there are other implications as well. The defense drop can be really appreciated, especially for your Kali Ice here with the Icicle play, powering up its Glacial Lances. You can go for like that Tickle Glacial Lance, and it can be a really good combination. And then the other interesting thing about Tickle on Whimsicott is you can use Tickle on Pokemon, specifically Zacian and Zamazenta, get rid of their attack and defense increase. And yeah, that could be really big, especially in the Zamazenta, because being able to go for Tickle, get rid of that defense increase on the Zamazenta means Body Press is doing a lot less damage. So I think it's a really cool tech, because otherwise, like if you have a Solvest Moridon, which is doing less damage, alongside Calyx Ice Rider, which doesn't exactly appreciate Zamazenta, going for Tickle could be like a really cool way just to slow down the Zamazenta and make it a lot less threatening to deal with. So I really like the idea of the Tickle Whimsicott, even though it's not like the best to utilize, because I think it only really affects Calyx Ice Rider and Urshifu on the defensive offensives, or on the offensive side, utilizing that defense decrease. It's probably not the best utilized, but I do think that the tech has really cool implications outside of it. So I think that's awesome. Can be used with the Surging Strikes Urshifu, with the Mystic Water, able to do a lot with the Terra Water and the Calyx Ice Rider Glacial Lance. Those are the only two mods that can really take advantage of it, but I do think it's like really, really nice tech for all the things I've mentioned before. Then you have the Incineroar. It's a standard Incineroar. You can, I guess, use Tickle with Knockoff, but it's not really utilized for that one. But I guess you can use it, especially defensive Incineroar, to take on like the Outer Barrage is a bit better. Able to go for like Knockoff, get rid of items, Helping Hand to make up for the lack of damage that the Moridon doesn't have with the choice specs. And yeah, I mean, it's just able to chip away with the Leech Seed Calyx Ice Rider, pretty standard that we've been seeing, running the Icicle Blade over like leftovers or anything, just because you still want the initial damage output. Mystic Water Taunt Urshifu for like the Moongus Spores and anything else that you really want to deal with, any setups. And then the really bulky Landers Incarnate with a Life Orb Sheer Force, able to dish out a ton of damage. And this one runs Crunch, which is, it's powered up by this Life Orb Sheer Force, and it is able to threaten the Calyx Shadow Riders. So I thought that was like a really interesting thing, because I never even considered that, but it's just really something that will be able to threaten the Shadow Rider, which of course the way to threaten it for the Calyx Ice Rider to pave through, I think it's just cool. I never have seen Crunch on Life Orb Landorus Eye, and the Crunch getting the Sheer Force boost as well, so you can actually threaten the KO on the Shadow Rider. And yeah, I just thought it was neat. Like I've never seen that before. So Yeah, because I don't think Landers Incarnate gets Dark Pulse if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, like having a way to actually threaten the Calyx Shadow Rider for knockouts or force a Terra is actually like a really neat tech, especially on the Life Orb Shadow Riders. Like you force a Terra, then they're weak to, they're usually Terra Dark. You threaten them to Dazzling Gleam. Yeah, that's pretty awesome to see. But yeah, that's the team that ended up winning Korean Nationals, and that is all the events that have happened in the last 2 weekends. Yeah, basically it's, or last 3 weekends. Yeah, last 3 weekends. So that is everything that's happened so far. And now let's get into, I guess, a few nationals opinions that are coming up, because we have US Nationals, or the North American International Championship, coming up this weekend, and then we have Japan Nationals, a big one. Like these are big tournaments coming up the weekend after. So I guess let's go over some things about like what my predictions will be. I don't think I'm going to do a super big breakdown, because I think there are like, I mean, I think the format's just well developed at this point. Like I don't think we're going to see anything super big surprising. Like I don't think we're going to see a crazy unique restricted duel. I mean, I could be completely wrong, of course. Maybe there's been like some testers who have been like really experimenting out in the wild with like their builds, saving it for this NIC, but or Japan Nationals. However, like there are different formats. NAIC, of course, is just going to be a different format. It's the classic best of 3 open team sheet in Generation 9. Then Japan Nationals, I think it's still closed team sheet, and then they switch to open team sheet, or like I don't remember the exact format of how Japan Nationals go, but it is different. But I do think the first part is closed team sheet, if I'm not mistaken. So how the restricteds will fare and the restricted duels will fare, I think, are completely different actually. So let's start with North American International Championship, which is the event coming up first. What would I expect to do well at North America? I think we're still going to see the downtrend of Terapagos. I think there might be like maybe 1 or 2 that might be able to sneak it into the final bracket, but I just think Terapagos has just been on a downtrend just because of the fact, again, you don't have the best immediate offensive damage output. Calm Mind Lunala has been picking up. That's been taking more advantage, and probably just better again because you don't have to rely on terrestrialization all the time. Even with the Lunala is like 4 times weakness. Like the fact that you have the stats to boost up immediately, I think is like really nice. And the Shadow Shield as well, which matches the Terra Shell, but it's just you have better stats in general. And yeah, I think that Terapagos usage will probably go way down compared to like previous. What are the restrictions I think would do pretty well? I think weather is just going to do well. I think what we're going to see weather. Like I think weather has always been a thing. I don't think Groudon's going to, I think Groudon is not going to, like Portland, it did well in Portland. I don't think we're going to see Groudon do well at NAIC as well as it did in Portland. There might be some Groudons, maybe there's one, or maybe there's a few that squeak in the day too, but I just really don't think we're going to see Groudon too much, especially when Kyogre just ended up rising usage. Kali Ice is very popular. I don't think we're going to see Groudon as much, so I'd be surprised to see a Groudon in the final bracket, but I do not think Groudon will. I do think that Kyogre and Koraidon though are very well positioned, and I think they're both positioned well for both events, because Koraidon we've seen do extremely well. I don't think you even need the what's it called, the Koraidon wheezing stuff, but I think Koraidon Sun has just proven how good it can be, because the Sun is just really great for partners of Koraidon and other restricteds. It's just really nice into shutting down, making sure that Water Shifu is a lot less scary. It's better into Kyogre than it is Groudon, because you do resist the water coverage in the first place. So I do think that Koraidon probably will be a top contender, and I would even think that Koraidon has a really good chance of winning NAIC. Like, if you want my opinion on who the restricted duo I think has like really good potential to win, this is Pokemon. Anything can win realistically. But I think if I were to go to NAIC, I think Koraidon Shadow Rider would probably be my pick. Like, out of the duos I've tested, the ones I'm like the most that are consistent are Shadow Rider Koraidon and Shadow Rider Zamazenta. I think Koraidon has that edge with the Sun enabling the partners, and I think that there's probably like a few more ways you can explore Shadow Rider plus Koraidon. I've actually been using a few different builds compared to like what we've commonly seen with like the Chi, the Brute Bonnet, the Wheezing, the Walking Wake. I think there's definitely more builds that you can pair with Koraidon, and I think it can definitely be really strong and it's consistent because you don't have any inaccurate moves with either of those. So I think that Koraidon Shadow Rider has really good potential, and I think it can definitely take a win on NAIC. I can also see Koraidon Lunala do really well, as it did really strongly in the first regional championship and then kind of fell off. But I do think it's a good duo. Like, I think the problem with Koraidon Lunala is that just lacks that really strong spread move with one of the restrictions you want. Like, its strongest spread move is probably like Chiyu Heat Wave otherwise, which is a little bit disappointing. However, like, it's still a powerful factor. So I could see both the Koraidon Lunala and Koraidon Shadow are just doing really well at NIC. And then I think Kyogre, again, if you hit your moves, it is a good Pokemon. It is a good Pokemon. It has a lot more weaknesses than it did in previous generations. However, Water Spout and Origin Pulse and Hydro Pump's really strong if it connects. It's just you gotta connect these moves. You just gotta connect these moves. Like this Mon summoning the rain, it's a great partner. What are we gonna see with it? I could see Kyogre Calyx Ice Rider doing well. It's been a popular combo. I do think the duo though has to be probably more innovative, because I think the current ones might struggle a bit with Calyx, Shadow Rider, Zamazenta. But I do think overall, like, Kyogre has potential to win. Like Kyogre Zacian, like, I think Kyogre Zacian can also do well. Again, just depends on if you hit the moves. Zacian is a Mon that I could see doing well at this event. I could see Kyogre Calyx Ice Rider. We could even see like maybe Kyogre Lunala and a few others end up performing well here, but I think it does actually have potential. We could even see like the rise of like Kyogre plus the Zamazenta and Kyogre plus Miraidon, which we've seen do well already. Like that combination can also still probably do well here. And maybe even Kyogre Calyx Shadow Rider, which we haven't really seen much, I think could have a breakout here. Like having a good placement at NIC. Not sure if it would Kyogre Shadow Rider could win because of we haven't seen a strong partner build with it yet, but I do think it has potential to have a deep run if necessary. And yeah, like I do think Koraidon and Kyogre are like really just good partners because they're really strong in their own right, but also like are just great supporting cast, because the Rain, of course, supporting the Zacian, the Calyx Ice Rider, their weaknesses being really impressive on their own. Kyogre, especially with the spread moves, like I think they have the most potential to be like one of the two restricteds to be on a winning team. I think the duo I'm a bit concerned about going into this event is just because I think this duo is still really good. I just don't think a lot of the top players, at least in North America, will bring it. Is Calyx Shadow Rider Zamazenta. I said this before at the regional championships in, what was it? Was it Indianapolis? The first one? I knew that it probably wasn't doing well because most players would not bring it. Most players were just not bringing it. And I think it's going to be the same thing. I don't know why. It's just North America just does not like these duos. Like we do see quite a bit. Like maybe there'll be like players like Aaron Brock if he plays really hot on his game and he's able to do well if he decides to bring the core. Montana, if they go, I think they have quite a bit of potential to do extremely well with it. And then Emilio Forbes, if they go and they are bringing the same or the same restricted duo, like I think they can do extremely well at this event. It's just otherwise, like I can't really say like who would I expect to bring Shadow Rider Calyx and Zamazenta and be at the level of like being able to like top 8 this event. Like I think most players in North America just refuse to use this duo, and I never really understood it. And it was kind of like Calyx Shadow Rider Zacian in 22. No one really in North America really brought it at the to, I think, North America. Well, I think I might have been, I think in 22 NIC, I think I was one of the best placing ones, and I didn't even go to much of, I like that was the first time I used a duo in tournament. Like I just feel like no one really brings it. They just like bring the others. Like they're more comfortable with bringing the weather. They're more inclined to bring other restricteds. I just don't know why North America refuses to bring Calyx Shadow Rider or Zamazenta. Well, I can understand Zamazenta VGC, but like they just don't like bring both of them. And I just think that's going to be a trend in NAIC. I just feel like we're not going to see that. We're going to see the restricted duel be used much by like the players have a who have a chance of winning. Like I just don't see it. I think they're just going to try to go with like other duos at this point. Like I could see them bringing like Koraidon Shadow Rider more, and I do think Koraidon Shadow Rider actually still again is probably my top duo that I think has the potential to win NIC personally. But yeah, I think Shadow Rider Zamazenta, highlighted by a really strong player, can do well. It's just I don't think many of them will bring it. Like I just don't think the region likes it for some reason. And then I think Calyx Ice Rider, we'll probably see some of them. Some of them are going to be Kyogre. Some of them are going to be Miraidon. I think Miraidon, Calyx Ice Rider, they're not going anywhere. I think we're going to see Lunala rise in the format, and we'll probably see some leftovers variants compared to the leftovers combined variants. So it'll be shaken up. We might see some wide guard sets with Electro Seed. We might see some with Meteor Beam Power. But at the end of the day, it is still going to be the same with the Lunala. It is a Mon, really good with terrestrialization, really good Mon in general in the dual restricted format, because you have options for both a sweeper with Calm Mind, a support with Trick Room and Wide Guard, or even both with the Power Herb set. It is a good restricted Mon with terrestrialization, and I do not think that is changing anytime soon. So I don't think we're going to see any big shakeups. I think we'll still see Kyogre, we'll still see Kalias, we'll still see Miraidon, we'll still see Lunala, we'll still see some Shadow Riders. I don't think we're going to see as many Shadow Riders Zamazentas. We might see some Zamazentas with like other duos. We might see some Koraidons, or not Koraidons. We will see Koraidons. We might see some Zacians, but otherwise restricted. I don't think it's going to be super changed. Maybe a few Ho-Ohs. I don't think Ho-Ohs usage will be super high at this event, but you might see like a few that might do well into day 2 potentially. But yeah, otherwise I'm not like expecting much for like big changes, shakeups at NIC. I think those are the duos that are probably going to do well. And then Japan Nats, I think it changes quite a bit. I think at Japan Nats, I would say, because it's closed team sheet, and I think it's still best of 1, at least for the first couple of rounds, if I'm not mistaken. If it's like the same format it's been kind of recently, where it's like best of 1 closed team sheet, and then they do like I think they do open team sheet. Like I don't remember they do best of 3 other than like winners, losers, and grand finals, because it always changes every year, and I haven't really looked up the structure yet. I'm pretty sure that if it is going to be like the teams that are going to advance early on, I think the duos that probably have the most or not even the duos, just the restrictors that have the most potential. I think Miraidon and Shadow Rider are probably the ones that suffer the most. I think drastically these Pokemon go down. I think they're still going to do well. I think there's probably going to be 1 or 2 maybe in like the top 16, top 8 range. But I would expect these Pokemon not to do extremely well in Japan Nats otherwise, at least in high usage for the high tables, just because these are the duels I think that like they have very limited things like they can do in close team sheet. I mean, yeah, there's like the Specs Calyx Shadow Rider, there's like Encore Disable, there's Life Orb, but there's not really too much you can do with like Shadow Rider otherwise. Like the thing about it, I think, is having your main moves being Electric and Dragon and Ghost have immunities, and I think that's kind of a problem, I think, in a closed team sheet environment, mainly because of it's not as oppressive, because if you do have immunities, it's a lot easier to play around compared to like Kyogre, where like, okay, maybe there's like some rare water absorbent Storm Drain mons, but they're really not used. Maybe Okerpon Wellspring, but otherwise you could still get a Water Spout and overwhelm teams if they guess wrong. I think with Shadow Rider and Miraidon, it's kind of similar, but at the same time, if they do have one of the immunities, they have a normal type, you can play around that. So I think Shadow Rider and Miraidon have less close team sheet sets, like, or less item choices, less moveset choices that they struggle to use in a closed team sheet environment than it does in an open team sheet environment. Because if you know the sets, it's like they're strong tools, but you can kind of cheese them and kind of prepare for them in different ways. So I do think that we're not gonna see Shadow Rider and Miraidon do as well as Japan Nats as compared to like NIC in a open team sheet environment, just because they are susceptible to like outside surprises. I'll just say that. I'll just say that. I think otherwise Zamazenta is also kind of similar. I think Zamazenta also kind of struggles with that factor. So I'd probably say those three Pokemon are probably the most endangered, because like there's stuff like Imprison, Shadow Rider, Imprison, Zamazenta. There's like a lot of Miraidon text that you could probably run for. Like some players on Stadium Ladder will they run a follow me eject button just so the Miraidon can't volt switch out, and then you get like hit by like a move that OHKOs you, and you thought you were safe that you could volt switch out, and then you just get absolutely screwed. Like those are the situations that just occur when you use mons that like are so popular already, and most of them know how to play against like the standard builds. It's like it just is not as oppressive. So I think they're good mons, but I don't expect them to do as well as Japan Nash just because of this factor. I think Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, and the Shadow Rider, Zamazenta, Miraidon struggle. I think Koraidon you could have a little bit of leeway. I think Koraidon is kind of similar, but at least you could run like the loaded dice skill shot. You can run Clear Amulet. You can run Choice Band. You can run Assault Vest. You could run Life Orb. And I think Sun is still really good no matter what, because it just enables the partners more. So I think Koraidon does have a bit more, but I'd probably say like Koraidon could be either like, I think it could have all right usage. I wouldn't say it's like probably gonna be overwhelming. I would say it's probably over all right to like low usage at the high, at least the high standings for it. That's what I would probably say for Koraidon. I think the Pokemon that have the most potential of doing well at Japan NAS that we're going to see usage wise at like the high standings, Kyogre. That's wrong against a Kyogre, you're getting screwed. Covercloak, Terra Ghost, Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, Assault Vest, Mystic Water. Even the dumb Iron Ball sets on Trick Room can catch you off guard, I guess. But like, yeah, I think in general, like Kyogre in closed team sheet is so strong. It's so strong in a best of one closed team sheet setting. Because if you guess wrong against like Kyogre, it is very bad. And at least like Kyogre, Primal Kyogre, it was like, okay, Blue Orb guaranteed. But when Kyogre can hold an item, this mon becomes so much dumber to predict. So that's why I think Kyogre does do well. Like it got third place at Reg G, Japan Nats, and I think that Kyogre will do well again in the format. I mean, last time it was literally, I think Terra Ghost Blizzard, or no, not Terra Ghost Blizzard, Terra Ice Blizzard Covercloak with Snowscape Tornado. I got third place last time, and I could see Kyogre just doing well again, just because there are so many sets you could probably catch opponents off guard, and it's really hard to predict a Kyogre. It just really is. I think Cali Ice also has potential to do well, just because even though like most of the sets we commonly see are like the Choice or the Assault or the Clear Amulet ones and the Leech Seed leftover ones, I think Cali Ice has more room to explore. If I'm not mistaken, Cali Ice, was it first, second place, or both? I know Reg G last year, where Assault Vest Cali Ice was the clear favorite of Japan Nats, because like a lot of players brought Assault Vest Cali Ice, and Cali Ice is a mon that has more flexibility. You don't have to run Trick Room, and I think that Cali Ice has more surprise factor. So I do think that Cali Ice is a Pokemon that can do well at Japan Nats. It has a few things that could do: loaded dice, Assault Vest, coaching stuff. It's still an oppressive Calyrex mon. It's really strong, but it has more options. You can go for Trick Room. You can decide not to have Trick Room. It's a lot of strong physical attacks. Like I think Cali Ice definitely has a lot of potential to win Japan Nats. Lunala, I think Lunala has probably again mid-range, probably mid usage in the mid-level usage at the high standings, because you have to guess like its item, you have to guess its set, and it's like really hard to do that between leftovers, Meteor Beam, Power Herb, Choice Specs even that was able to do well in the qualifiers. Like Lunala is a really strong Pokemon. You have to always play around Wide Guard, even if like there is no Wide Guard to Lunala, you always have to guess about this mind game, and that can reward the player for playing aggressive and capitalizing on that mind game. Like I think Lunala has potential there. So I think Lunala, Calyx Ice Rider, and Kyora are just really good positioned for the Japan Nats. And then I don't know what else would see realistically, because a lot of the restricteds, I mean, it's more centralized. But while I could say a Shadow Rider, Miraidon are going to do well at NAIC, I just don't see it doing well at Japan Nats, or like having as high placements or high usage in the high placements. And then I think we could probably see a few Zacians, mainly because I think Zacian could catch them off guard with like a substitute Zacian, maybe like some different Zacian sets. We've seen in 22, for instance, like Solar Blade Zacian was able to do well, I think, in Japan Nats, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a mon that could do well. Maybe some interesting Zamazenta sets, but there really isn't too much room to explore. I think Terapagos actually does have potential Japan Nats, mainly because you're not like stuck to the leftover set everyone runs. And I think Terapagos could have a decent one at NAIC too, if it wasn't for the leftover standard Calm Mindset. I could see Specs Terapagos doing well here. I could see the Meteor Beam Power Up set doing well. I could see maybe like other sets on the Terapagos potentially. But in general, I think Terapagos probably has more usage at Japan Nats, or more chance of a Terapagos doing well at Japan Nats than it does at NIC. But yeah, I don't think it'll be super common. But we do have last year's champion who used Terapagos to win going to this event. And I think, what was that? Last time was Rock Polish, right? I'm pretty sure last time was Rock Polish Meteor Beam that won. So I think Terapagos definitely has some potential winning Japan Nats or doing well in it. Maybe not the highest usage mon, but it definitely has potential. So that's what I would say. That's my take. And then everything else is like, okay, pretty much maybe we'll see some random restricteds at Japan Nats. Maybe we'll see like Rayquaza and a few others potentially. I don't think we're going to see them in NIC, but I could see a Rayquaza doing well at Japan Nats. And then pretty much, I mean, most of the other restricteds, I mean, maybe we could, but like, I feel like the other restrictors, there's just such a gap between like the common usage restrictors that we use now, and then the restrictors we just don't see. Like there's just such a big gap sometimes. But yeah, I think that's gonna conclude what I would assume gonna come out. I think there's a lot of support Pokemon that could do well at the events coming up that haven't been used. I've talked about them in the first episode of the Baekfast Club, and I still think they have usage coming up. Pokemon like Annihilate, Pokemon like Regieleki, Pokemon like Ditto, Pokemon like Smeargle. I think a lot of the Pokemon I mentioned at the beginning could do well. I think even more Entity females could do really well, just because I think Psychic Terrain could be really valuable going into the events. So I think there are quite a few support Pokemon that people are sleeping on. But yes, I mean, yeah, there's a lot that could be said. I mean, I'm taking more of a broader take on Japan Nats and NIC, but I mean, there's so many factors when it comes to Pokemon, especially when you have like the best players in Japan competing against each other, and then you have like such a big event in North America. Like it's probably going to be a 12-round Swiss event into Top Cut. Like anything could happen. So it should be exciting to see. So that is going to conclude the Nationals take. So that is what I'm predicting for Japan Nationals and for the North American International Championship. We're going to move on to our extra bonus story, which is my Switch 2 horror story. And some of you might have known this story, especially if you follow me on Twitch, because I've told a lighter version of the story. But I guess I'll go into a bit more detail about this story, which, oh man. So if you don't know, I've been recording on the Switch 2, and in order to get it, let me just say it was a bit. So if you don't know, Switch 2 launch ends in disappointment for some as major retailer accidentally staples receipts into the console screen. So if you don't know, a GameStop in New York decided to staple a receipt onto the Switch 2 box. And because this, for some reason, I don't know why Nintendo designed it this way, the Switch 2, like, imagine this is the box lid you're opening up, and then the Switch 2 is inside. Imagine this is the lid, and then this is the lid, and then this is the Switch 2. They're like right next to each other. It's so dumb, but they stapled the receipt onto the box, and then it punctured through the Switch 2. It was the dumbest idea. Okay. It was the dumbest idea. And guess what? At GameStop was the one where I went to get my Switch 2. You can't make this stuff up. I actually can't. I'll show you a picture of the screen. When I found out about this news, I opened up my Switch 2 box and literally I saw the holes and I'm like, you don't know what I was feeling, man. Okay. So, for context, I did not have a Switch 2 pre-order the week of the Switch 2 going up because it was basically impossible. Best Buy, impossible. GameStop, let me just say the crash just made it impossible on the website. So I was like, okay, I am not getting a Switch 2 from that. My game plan for getting a Switch 2 was just going to go to Costco the morning of because Costco wasn't doing pre-orders. And I would just hope because like everyone else pre-ordered at like Best Buy or GameStop, most likely that everyone who got Switch 2, most of them would go there. And because of the fact that Costco is a membership exclusive store, that I wouldn't have to worry about it, like as many people showing up to Costco. So that was my plan, was showing up to Costco and getting the Switch 2 hopefully on the day, because I knew Costco was selling them and they weren't doing pre-orders. So that was my plan. And then GameStop decided, hey, we're going to do extras for the Switch 2, show up to the store the day before the release at 3 p.m. for a limited amount of consoles that are going to be added to a midnight release, which kind of dumb the way they did it, because it was like, okay, so you go up to the store, you assuming you are one of the first, depending on how many consoles that they had extra, which was like 30 to 40, I think, range for most stores. You come back to the store at midnight, and then if you are there from like midnight to how late they're open, because it's like midnight to like 1 p.m. I think. In some cases, maybe like they open a bit later for the midnight release. If you don't claim your Switch between that time frame, you just lose your money. It's I think that's kind of dumb. I like I didn't know that when I showed up. I showed up to the GameStop because I'm like, you know what? I'll try it, because if I could get a Switch 2 guaranteed, I might as well, right? So I showed up to, so there are like 3 GameStops in Staten Island. There is the one I went to, the one that has all the you know, the staple problems. There's the one in the mall, and this is the first time I'm ever doing like a console pre-order. I've never done a console pre-order before, so I have never had this issue, and I have like no idea what the standard procedure is and like what it goes by and like how other GameStops handle. There's the other GameStop in the mall, and I felt like malls just don't do the releases because the mall closes before midnight. So how do you get into the GameStop that's in the mall? So I'm like, okay, that probably is not having a, you know, a midnight release. And then there's another GameStop in the busier part of, because there's like a GameStop in one side of the island, and then there's the other one to the other side of the island. And that side of the island I know is like really packed and busy and populated. So I was like, okay, I'm going to show up to this one. It's the least popular part of the island, and I'll see if I can grab one, right? So I show up, like leave my house like an hour and a half before 3. So it's like 1:30. I get there at like 2. And then there's a bit of a line, but it's not like too bad. It's like 10 people. And I show up. I'm like 12th in line. It's actually funny because the guy in front of me leaves as soon as he finds out that you have to be there at midnight, sometime between midnight and 1 p.m. to pick up the console, or you lose your money, which I thought I could just pick up literally like anytime tomorrow or anytime the Switch is released and just pick up the console. But no, you have to show up at midnight to 1. So I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. But you know what? I'm here anyway. I claim like 11th in line. So like I'm like committed. I'm committed at this point. I'm committed. So everything goes smooth. Like I wait an hour. We go into the store afterward because you have to wait outside because to pay for it. And then afterward, I pay for the Switch 2. I pay for like the Pro controller, and then I just leave, right? Like I'm gonna show up back at midnight. I decide, hey, I'm gonna show up maybe like 40 minutes early. I think I showed up. Well, my original plan was to show up like 30 minutes early, but then I was just getting bored. So I think I showed up an hour early at that point because I was falling asleep. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna show up early. So I show up like 45 minutes early. It's like 11:15 p.m. And I'm like, okay. I'm like one of the first 40-ish people in line for the console. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. And for what the process was very smooth. Basically, they made everyone pre-buy already. So if you had to pre-order, like if you actually had gotten a pre-order, not the 3 p.m. last minute thing, you would go into the store, you would pay, and then you would get back in your place in line. And then, yeah, like when midnight drops, it's late. You don't have to pay for anything. It's just you show your receipt with the number that you have, and then they just hand you the thing, and then you can leave. And process was really smooth. I really did enjoy the process. It wasn't that bad. Like, sure, I waited a bit in line, but I'm a patient person. I've waited in lines before, and I don't mind standing for a bit. So it's pretty smooth. It's like midnight. Midnight happens. Everyone goes in to get the console, like a couple at a time, because it's a small GameStop. It's like 15 minutes afterward, like 15 minutes. I'm like, again, number 40 in line, and then I have the console in my hands. Like, it was super smooth. Like, the process was super smooth. So did not have a problem there. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. But then again, I did have to again go at midnight. And the thing is, I have to wake up early in the morning because I have to drop someone off in the morning. So for me, I was like, okay, I have the console. I took a selfie with it. As you can tell by my excited face, I'll put on screen because, yeah, I'm super excited to have this console at midnight when I'm almost falling asleep, and I'm just praying that I get home safely. So drive for 30 minutes afterward. I don't open the box because I'm like, if I open the box, I know I'm like not going to sleep at all. So I just drive home quickly, get home around 1, and then I just crash out at the night. Like, I lay just fall asleep because it is super late. And I got to get up in a few hours. And then I wake up at 6:30 in the morning. I check a DM on Discord from my phone. My thumbnail editor sends me a link to the article that says about, or it was a link to a Reddit thread that went viral. And it has a picture of a receipt with the exact same store that I just went to, that I just came back from. I did not open my Switch too. I literally had it. I literally just went home, placed it near my front door inside, and I just went to bed. Once I saw that thread, I went to my box. I looked around on it. I didn't see a stapler. I knew that they were very heavily on the stapler part, but I was like, there's no way they did it to everyone's, right? I opened the box. I noticed the holes. Which you could tell by the photo I'm putting up. And I am like, oh boy, how is this going to work? So I am sitting there. Might I add you, I am on a few hours of sleep. I have to drive in the next 5 minutes. And I'm like, and I am like, this is unbelievable. Because I had literally posted I have the Switch 2, but I am 100% returning. Because I was like looking through the film that they packaged the Switch 2 in to make sure, like, oh, maybe it only punctured the packaging. No, it punctured the screen too. I'm like, great, I'm gonna have to return this, and they better not give me any problems with returning it. Because yeah, so I drop who I needed to drop off, and it's still like 7:30 in the morning. I remember my Costco plan, and I'm like, what time does the Costco open? And the Costco actually opens pretty early. It opens at 9. I thought it was 10, but apparently it's 9. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I am going to drive to the Costco, because let's be real. If the Switch 2, like, I don't think GameStop is, like, even if they can replace the Switch 2, there's no way they're going to have the consoles at the store. So I go to the Costco at 7:30 in the morning. I get there at like 8. And I was like one of the first 12 people in line. There were a few others that were like lined up in the front of the door, had fun conversations. And then I got it. I got the Switch 2 again. I got the Switch 2 again. No pre-orders. Super smooth process, by the way, Costco. And also shout out for Costco because not only did they have like obviously no stapler, they had the Switch 2 and then they had a whole package box. Like they literally give you a whole package box for the Switch 2, which is awesome. It is literally awesome. It had like airbags inside, so like it's safer and don't have to worry much about the console. I'm like, yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing. I got my Switch 2, went into Costco, like they let us in like 10 minutes before opening, out of there before 9, and I have the Switch 2 in my hands. And like, now that's nice. And then I have a bit of time to finish before GameStop opens so I can return my Switch 2, the broken one. So I just go home, I set up my Switch 2 that I got from Costco, and then after that, I just drive to the GameStop. And let me just say, I do think that this was a lack of common sense. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Why would you staple the console package? I do not understand. I do not understand. They have already gotten, I think, enough flack from the media. Like this literally went viral. It was on so many media outposts, Reddit posts, Twitter, Blue Sky, everywhere. Basically knew this mistake. They knew this mistake. There are a few people in line when I got there. I think I showed up like, I don't know, 30 minutes before it opened. But they were super understanding. I thought like, oh, this better not be any trouble or anything. And no, but they knew. They knew. And I thought it was like really well handled how they hit it. Or their response to it, which I appreciated. So basically they didn't have any consoles, which makes sense because like there was the pre-order ones, which they say for the pre-orders one didn't get messed up. It's only messed up if you picked up it on midnight. And then they have the pre-order ones, but that's it. But what they did is some of the employees ended up driving out to other parts of New York to work with other stores and GameStops in order to bring the extra consoles that they had back to the store in that area. So I thought that was really cool because that's what they did. And you could put your phone number down and they would call you when they had the replacement Switch 2. And yeah, I thought that was handled super well. They were very patient. They were very understanding. And I feel like most people there didn't give them a hard time because, I mean, let's be real. If it went viral, they already kind of knew. Like, I thought they handled it pretty well. Attitude was actually like pretty understanding. And yeah, like I don't blame them at all. Sure, you can blame them for the lack of common sense, but what's done is done. And I think they handled it well. So when the doors opened for the GameStop, was like probably like 10th in line. All I had to do for me, because I got my Switch 2 at Costco, I didn't need a replacement. So all I did, refunded, gave them the broken console or the damaged console, received my money back, and yeah, that was the end of the story. So James with trying to get Switch 2 with no pre-order, deciding, hey, a GameStop had a chance, and it messed up, and thinking I was not going to get Switch 2. Did the Costco last minute dream. Costco coming in clutch. Let me just say, I love Costco. I will say it was probably one of the most stressful things that I had to do in quite a while, especially on like the no sleep. I was just the things I was feeling that day were definitely not fun. But at the end of the day, I did get my console, thankfully, was able to set it up. And yeah, it was a happy ending for me, at least. And I think the store got enough flack. And I mean, they handled it well. Like, I don't really much to say about that. They actually did really handle it well. The response was well. And I hope the store will continue because they probably lost a lot of money doing that. Like, they have lost a lot of money to replace a bunch of Switch 2. So I hope that they will still be in business because honestly, the staff was super friendly. Like, people were saying online, like, oh, it's probably just a bunch of young people that just are low paid and don't really care. But no, I think that was not the experience. That was not the experience. I think these were people who, like, I don't know, these were normal people and it was just a mistake that happened at the end of the day. Can't really do much about it. I hope that they learned from this. I hope they have better protocols for the next event, and I hope they stay in business because they definitely lost a lot of money replacing all these Switch 2s that were damaged, and I hope they can recover from it because I honestly thought that other than the damage with the stapler idea, everything else was a smooth, solid ride. Like everything else in the process was super smooth. The 3 p.m. stuff, super smooth. The midnight release, incredible. That's like, I've heard like horror stories of like how it used to be back in the day, but no, it was honestly a very reasonable and enjoyable experience of picking up a Switch 2 at midnight, even though I had to deal with like all the emotion roller coaster in the morning of really getting the Switch 2. I've gotten it, and now I can record videos on the channel. Because what's dumb is also like I only got the Switch 2 for Scarlet Violet videos. I only got for Scarlet Violet videos because there are like no games on the Switch 2 that I'm interested in at the current moment. So that was my horror story for Switch 2. I can't believe I actually ended up the one store, the one GameStop that did it was literally the GameStop that I decided maybe I should have gambled more. I didn't know. Apparently, the mall did have an opening release. Apparently, they just opened the door like a mall, so I could have went there too. But no, I decided to choose the calculated, least populated area. Drive like 30 minutes there. Go for the Switch 2 just for that to happen. It's like insane to me. But yeah, can't believe I participated in that historic moment. And shout out to my thumbnail editor for DMing me that because I probably would not have known that otherwise because I don't really check social media that much. But when I saw the receipt in the picture, you don't know the waves that were going through my head at that moment. That tired James was feeling things he had never felt, like despair. But yeah, that's my Switch 2 horror story. And it's just wild that that was the one store. Apparently some Walmarts and some other retail stores did it, but it's not as big noticed. I heard some Walmarts have done this actually, but yeah, I think the GameStop one is the one that went viral because I think it was the one that was posted the earliest, but apparently it did happen to other places. But that was like the only big GameStop that really happened there. So hope you enjoyed it. That is the end of the Baekfast Club. We have covered all the events. We have covered the nationals. Let me know in the comments down below. Have you gotten a Switch 2? Have you had a better time than me getting that console? What are your experiences with? Let me know in the comments down below what you're expecting for North American internationals as well as Japan nets. Do you think my predictions are going to be right? Do you have other predicts? Do you have some other things that you might be thinking about these tournaments? Let me know your reactions and all. Let me know anything about the podcast as well, because again, this podcast / talk show will only be continuing throughout till the end of the World Championship at the end of the season. So every episode matters, so make sure you leave your feedback while you can, so hopefully we can continue the series. If you do enjoy it, again, you have to let me know. That's gonna be it though. I'm losing my voice. I've recorded for almost 2 hours again. I thought this was going to be a shorter episode even with the bonus story, so I will cut it here. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to this episode of the Baekfast Club. Let me know what you ate for your last meal down below in the comments. For me, what was my last meal even? What was my last? Oh yeah, my last meal was pad thai for dinner. I had some pad thai for dinner. I love pad thai. It's delicious. And yeah, I don't really have Thai food that much, and I always love a good pad thai, and it was a good pad thai. So let me know in the comments down below what was your last meal, and enjoy the rest of your day.